I've been held in your hand from the moment that I wake up till I lay my head. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Yeah, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice, I love your voice. Oh, you have led me through the fire in darkness night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. Oh, I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. You've always been faithful, let's sing. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, oh, it's running after me. My life laid out and I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, oh, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing, oh, and I will sing of the goodness of God. Are you hurt and broken within? Overwhelmed by the weight of your sin, Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind your regrets and mistakes. Come today, there's no reason to wait. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows and faith and the joy. From the ashes, a new life is born. Oh, Jesus is calling. Oh, come. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. You know what I say. Isn't he wonderful? Sing hallelujah. Christ is risen, and bow down before Him, and for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Oh, come to the altar, the Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar, the Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, bear your cross as you wait for the crown. Tell the world all the treasure you found. You may be seated.
Your grace run out if I let you down, 'cause all I know is how to run. I am a sinner, if it's not one thing, it's another. Caught up in words, strangled in lies. But you are a savior, and you take brokenness aside and make it beautiful, beautiful. Will you call me child when I tell you lies? 'Cause all I know is how to cry. You are a savior, and you take broken society and make it beautiful, beautiful. You make it beautiful, beautiful.
Oh, I'm caught up in your presence. I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. Oh, and I never want to leave. Yeah, I'm not here for blessing. And Jesus, you don't owe me anything. You're more than anything that you can do. Oh, I just want you. Oh, I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sang another song to take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. When I come with my agenda, I'm sorry. When I forgot that you're enough, take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. Yeah, I just want to sit here at your feet, Father. I'm caught up in this holy moment. Oh, and I never want to leave. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Oh, and nothing else will do. I just want you. Oh, and nothing else will do. I just want you. Oh, and nothing else, Lord. I want nothing else, Jesus. Nothing else will do. I'm caught up in your presence, and I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. Oh, and I never want to leave. And I'm not here to bless you. Jesus, you don't owe me anything. Oh, it's more than anything that you can do. Oh, I just want you. I just want you. I just want you. Nothing else. Oh, nothing else will do. I just want you. Oh, and nothing else will do.
Hope Church today? Everybody doing good? Good worship songs. Two people are doing well. I hope the rest of you do better after the end of the service. Y'all doing all right today? That's a little bit better. How you doing, Cookie? See you. This is our second Sunday that we're doing our summer sermon series. We're calling it Road Trip. We've got some really great pictures to show you after our sermon today. We're going to be bringing in different guests the next several weeks to share their faith journey, their testimony. As this slide says, we all have a story to share. What's yours? I've met several people that I didn't know this last week. As many of you know, I was out of state, and I really appreciate your prayers. My dad made a video. I was going to show it today, but we had so many things we were trying to put in today, so maybe I'll be able to show that in the camp or something. But he wanted to thank you guys for your prayers and continue to pray for them. But I got to meet a lot of, well, I was going to say interesting people, but people I didn't know this past week, and heard some testimonies, heard some stories. We all have that. And we are going to have our youth camp starting today, going through Friday, and that's why many of our adults have gotten like 4 or 5 more gray hairs this morning when we woke up. But I'm excited about this week, and I'm really excited about this couple that's, I almost said young couple, this young couple up on the front row to my left, to your right, Dale and Pamela Hudson. He told me this was taken like 15 years ago, so this is what I was expecting to see. But I haven't seen Brother Dale and Miss Pamela for a really long time, and we got to catch up a little bit this morning. He's going to talk more about his family, but I want to say this about Brother Dale and Miss Pamela both. Just a couple of years that I got to spend with them. Many of you remember Dale and Pamela from Cornerstone. He was one of the associates there, did evangelism, did bus ministry. But something I learned from Brother Dale was to love people. And this is a guy that not only loves Jesus, but he loves people. And that's what God calls us to do. Those are the two most important things in our lives that we're going to do, is love Jesus and love people. And he's been to several churches all around the country, serving on staff, being children's pastor, and I know he's worn many other hats. He travels now, he writes, he's an author. I read your article that I saw the other day on churchleaders.com, and I thought that was a great article. But we're so blessed to have them this week. He's going to preach this morning, and he's going to preach, I guess, 6 times, because tonight will be the first one. There'll be 5 services at camp. So I want to encourage you to come up to camp. If you're not a camper, come up and support our evening services. But Brother Dale's going to come and preach to us today. Would y'all give him and Miss Pamela a big hope welcome?
Thank you, Pastor Ben. It has been a long time since I've seen some of you. We did have enjoy being at Cornerstone back years ago. I think it was 20 years ago that we were there. But everybody's grown up. Everybody's got gray hair now. Your kids have kids. Your kids have grandkids. Do you feel old? You shouldn't feel old, right? It's just a number. But we're so glad to be here with you today. And how many of you have heard me speak before, or this is your first time? Raise your hand. That was an attempt at a joke there. But yeah, I'm starting to feel old. I'm just 53, but I'm already. You ever go in a room and like, why did I come in here? What's going on here? All right, I find myself running into things in the hallway. I'll run into a door frame. I don't know why, just not keeping where I'm going. I have a hard time holding on to stuff. Sometimes stuff slips from my fingers, and then once I hit 50, I had to have glasses. Some of you can identify with that. Once I hit 50, I had to have glasses. But it's exciting to see what God's doing here. I've kept up with your church. I know you went through the fire and built this beautiful new facility, and man, God's blessing you guys. This is not happening everywhere. There's a lot of churches today that are dead, that are dying, that are closing their doors. But you've got a vibrant, exciting ministry going here, so we're so happy for you about that. Well, some of you may remember my family when we were here, so I thought I'd just do a little bit of catch up. See, Caleb was probably, our youngest son he was probably, what, 2 or 3 when we were there? We'll do Caleb first. So there's a picture of Caleb, and that's he's got the ring. We're just waiting on the day he's going to give it to her. That's his soon-to-be fiance. He lives in Gainesville, Florida, and was there in college and stayed there in the area. It's talking about stories, amazing stories. So Natalie's family is from Cambodia. Her parents were there when the Khmer Rouge took over, the communists took over. Her grandparents were killed by the communists, and they were put in, her parents were put in a concentration camp there in Cambodia. And the first day they were there, her father was in a little, he was 7, 8 years old at the time. They were in a little circle giving them a little bit of food they gave them. They were eating that. And one of the soldiers, he said, narrative, her father said, one of the soldiers just came over there and just randomly picked 2 kids. Took them about 10 feet away and just shot them. And said, if you try to escape, because the trouble is what happened to you. Can you imagine that as a child seeing that, going through that? Well, they realized that they were going to die if they stayed there in the camp. Just they worked them to death. They realized they were going to die, so they at nighttime, her parents snuck, and they were 7 or 8 years old at the time, snuck out of camp, and for two weeks lived in the jungle, eating anything they could find to survive. And after 2 weeks, they came into Thailand, and from Thailand, they were sponsored as refugees over to Southern California. When they got to Southern California, her parents were there, and the whole apartment complex was Cambodians, without exception. The whole apartment complex was Cambodians. Until one day, this Caucasian guy moved in right in the middle of all of the Cambodians. And he just started loving them. He helped them find jobs. He played basketball with them. He would teach them things, help them learn English and get jobs and so forth. And after about 3 years of doing that, he said, guess what? I want to start a Bible study. And her father said, well, I'm Buddhist, but you've been so kind to us, how can I not come and hear what you have to say? Long story short, they went to that Bible study and they got saved. And now they are great business leaders there in the community. They send big mission trips back to Cambodia and see God do great things out there. I'm hoping to go over with them for one of those mission trips to Cambodia in the next year or so. So that's Caleb, and then Joshua is 30. He's 30, and he was a bundle of energy when he was little. I don't know if you remember, that guy could run all, he never stopped. He was a bundle of energy. He's grown up now, he's 30, and that's his wife. They've been married for 7 years. 7 years, and Jenny, her parents, there's a trend here, I think. Her parents were imprisoned by Castro in Cuba, and they escaped to the United States, and they met at college there. They've been married for 7 years, and they are in the process of adopting. So we're excited to be grandparents very, very soon. So that's a little bit about my family, and great to meet many of you. I want to talk to you after the service is over. I have a hobby. I like to look at church signs. You know, people sometimes will put stuff on church signs they think is going to help, but it can be comical at times. So here's one. They said, looking for a lifeguard, hours walked on water. Well, that'll bring me in on it. Somebody else, they said, another one was, Adam and Eve, the first people to read the Apple terms and conditions. That's true, right? We got a computer or something. This church says God does not make mistakes. This one said this, if evolution is true, how come moms only have 2 hands? All moms say amen to that. And I don't know what to say about that. When your sign is broken, fix your sign. That's all I have to say about that, fix your sign. Whoever's praying for snow, stop praying for snow, please. I think it's the last one. Okay, well, I thought this was pretty ingenious. Wanted singers in choir. You know, that was pretty, I'll give you that. That was pretty smart there. I think this is the last one. Yeah, free beer! Just kidding, free Jesus on Sunday. So your sign looks okay. So if you put anything comical out there, just make sure you run it by some people first. Well, I want to talk to you about faith journey. At the end of the sermon, I'm going to share my faith journey. I want to talk to you about faith today for more. Faith for more. If you look at the Bible, the book of Ephesians, stay back on Ephesus if you would. Look in the book of Ephesians. I want to talk a little bit about that. Ephesians was written around 62 AD by the Apostle Paul. He was writing back to the believers in the city of Ephesus. So naturally the book was called Ephesians. It was interesting, Paul had came to Ephesus and had ministered there for over 2 years. He had seen God do some great, great stuff. Ephesus had a lot of false gods. They had the great temple of the Greek goddess Diana that was built by Alexander the Great. It went on to become known as one of the 7 wonders of the world. But Paul came in there and he began to preach and share the gospel, and God did amazing things. It says the word of the Lord grew mightily. Well, when the word of the Lord grew mightily, some people got upset. There were people that made trinkets or souvenirs for the people that were coming to worship the false prophet there. And people stopped buying their stuff because they were getting saved. And they got upset about it. And they said, we're going to do something about this or we're going to be run out of business. And so one in particular, Demetrius, a silversmith, Paul mentioned him, how he came against him. So they started a riot to try to get Paul killed, and Paul escaped out of the city. So picture that. God did great things there, and Paul escaped. And he's been gone about 2 or 3 years, and he writes back to that church. He writes back to that church to let them know that so much more could happen. That God was not done with them as a church. And I want to say to you today, that God's not done with you.
That's right.
God has so much more He wants to do in you and through you,
Yes.
if you will let Him. Some of you you're in your 80s and you're like, I'm retired. I don't do anything here around the church. Listen, God's got more for you to do. If you're breathing, God has more for you to do. Amen?
Yes.
Great things He wants to do through you. So we're going to talk a little about that. And here's the verse, Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20. This is the verse that we'll look at. It says, now all glory to God. Again, Paul's writing back to this church. Who is able, through His mighty power at work within us, to accomplish infinitely, here's the word, more than we might ask or think. Paul's saying, even though you've seen some great things happen, there's so much more that God can do through you.
Yeah.
Isn't it awesome to see God at work, and you're like, man, keep doing this, God, keep working in my life. It's kind of like you eat pecan. My grandmother makes an incredible pecan pie. And I can't just have one bite, I gotta have more. And I don't want anybody to give me a hard time about that. But I gotta have more. And you know what it is, we can reserve something and man, that's good, I want some more of that. Well, God wants to give you more of His work, more of His grace, more of His power.
Yeah.
This church in Ephesus they were in a place where they could really make a difference. They were a center of travel and commerce. They had the greatest seaport in the world at the time. They said that all roads in Asia Minor were centered in Ephesus. And so they were in a high impact area. And I would say to you, if you look around, you as a church, you're in an area where you can make a big difference. You're surrounded by thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that God can use you to reach. And so think about that today, that you're poised to do more. God wants to do above what you can imagine if you have the faith for more. So in this verse he wrote, he gives 4 steps to seeing God do more in our lives and in our ministry. And so I want us to look at that. So here's number 1 if you're taking notes. Number 1, you got to realize that it's got to be for God's glory. He says in the first Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, the first words that come out of that he writes down is now all glory to
God. Yes.
Hope Church. Now all glory to the deacons. No, it says all glory to God. All glory to God. If you want to see God move, it's got to be for His glory. He won't share His glory. And the only reason you want to do more is just so that you can say, look at us, the church. That's God's like, to bless that. He wants to do more because of Him. God will not share His glory with anybody.
That's right.
I found that out when I was first starting ministry. I think I was like 15 or 16. I did call to preach. And I was invited to go preach at a youth conference a couple hours away. And so I had worked on my awesome sermons. I kept my sermons in a notebook like this. And I was so excited. I worked on this sermon, got this sermon. So I drive down there 2 hours. They announced me to come up and speak, and I opened up the notebook, and guess what? I brought the wrong notebook. And the sermon had nothing to do with young people. And I like stuttered and stammered for 4 or 5 minutes, and then I was just closed my book, and I said, I'm sorry I brought the wrong sermon. And I know it doesn't make any sense, but we're going to play a song. Offering song if you want to get saved and come on down. I couldn't believe it. Young people started coming forward down and getting saved. People began to respond. You could feel God working in the service. Well, I got done with that service and I thought, okay, I'm going back to get my sermon I was supposed to have. Drove 2 hours, got the right notebook, came back the next day for the service. Man, I got up there and I preached my awesome sermon. I laid it out there and it was time for the invitation and it was dead as a doorknob in there. No, dead doorknob. Dead as something else. Yeah, dead like something. You pick it. It was dead. Nobody came forward. Nobody raised their hand. They were all like, let's just get out of here. It's over. You know what? As I drove home from that incident, God reminded me, it's not about you.
That's right.
It's not your fancy sermons that's going to do more. It's not your speaking that's going to do more. It comes from me. It's for my glory.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure that it's for His glory. God continues to just teach me that lesson. I was preaching at a church in the Tampa area a couple years ago, and they had 2 services back to back. And I did the first service, and between services, this little lady came up, and I thought she's going to go up and say, "Oh, Sonny, what a great job! That's a great service." She walked out and she said, "You got a tag on your coat." What? You got a tag. Look, I had forgotten to take the sales tag off the coat. And God said, I'll keep you humble. You can get up and preach with the sales tag hanging out, everybody looking at you like you're crazy for a while. If you want to see God do more, you got to stay humble.
Yeah.
You have to stay pointing people toward His glory.
Yeah. Amen.
His glory. God will test you through pride.
Amen.
It says He'll test you through pride. If you get too prideful, He may take His hand off of your life.
Yeah.
So it must be, number one, it must be. If you want to see God do more in you and as a church, it's got to be for His glory. Number two, you got to believe He's able.
Yeah.
Believe He's able. Now look what the verse says next. It says, all glory to God. What does it say next? Who is able.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really believe God can do more? Do you believe that? Do you believe that the best is yet to come for Hope Church? Do you believe the best is yet to come for you as a believer? Can you believe God for more? Do you have the faith that He's going to do more? Paul wrote this in Romans verse 4, verse 21. He said he was fully convinced that God is able to do whatever He promises.
Yeah.
God is able. You have to believe that. Nothing's too hard for the Lord. He's able to save your marriage. He's able to heal. He's able to put friendships back together, restore relationships.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Have you ever heard the good news, bad news? You remember the guy that he and his buddies played softball. They love softball. They played all the way up till they were in their 80s. And they always told each other, man, we hope there's softball in heaven. When we first won there, just let us know that there's softball. So one of the guys died. He died. And the friend that loved baseball and played with him, after the guy died, about a month later, he was in bed at night. That guy's ghost came up and said, hey, I got some good news and bad news. The good news is there is softball in heaven. And it's awesome. We can get hits all the time. And yeah, there's softball in heaven. The guy said, that's great. He said, but the bad news is you're on the lineup to pitch next Tuesday. Good news and bad news. You know, it's like the teenager that came in the house and said, Dad, I got some good news. The airbag on your new car works. The bad news is there was a wreck. God is able through His mighty power to change kids' lives.
Yes.
God is able through His mighty power to change students' lives, to rescue marriages. His power works through you. He wants to work through you if you believe He's able.
Yes.
Number 3. The verse goes on, it says, now all glory to God, so it's got to be for His glory. Who's able? You got to believe that He is able. Through His mighty power at work within us. You have to rely upon His power, not your own. This is the same verse that is used in Acts chapter 1, where it says you'll receive power from the Holy Spirit. Dunamis, dynamite. You'll have this power working for you. The Word of God will work mightily through you if you ask Him to use you. I love Zechariah, chapter 4, verse 6 says this. Then He said to me, this is the word of the Lord. To Zerubbabel saying, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord.
Sorry.
It's not through your ability, it's not through your gifts, it's through the power of the Holy Spirit.
Sorry.
John 15 says this, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you'll bear much fruit, but apart from me, you can do nothing, nada. It's not going to happen. And so we have to rely upon His power. When I was a kid, we lived in Greenville, North Carolina for several years. I was in 3rd or 4th grade at the time. I got a paper route. After school every day, I'd come home and I'd get my papers and fold them up, and I had a bicycle with a basket on the front, and take off and deliver my papers. I had like 100 houses I did. Well, that was a city, it was a college town, so one of the places I delivered the papers was an apartment complex that was full of college kids. And when it would snow in the wintertime, they would bomb me with snowballs. I hear this 3rd grade boy, I come in there and sure enough, poof, poof, it was 2 stories, they'd throw them off the balcony and try to hit me. And I just was getting knocked off my bike, didn't know what to do. Well, I got back home and after I put up with that for about 2 or 3 weeks, I went to my neighbor's house and I said, is Kenny home? Kenny came out. Kenny was a senior in high school. He was a starting pitcher for the largest high school in the city. We're talking like 95-mile-an-hour fastballs. And I said, Kenny, here's a 3rd grader looking up to this 12th grader, Kenny. I'm delivering papers and these college kids, they're just bombing me with snowballs. Can you do something? He said, I'll be glad to help. So the next time it snowed, I was in the apartment complex, and Kenny had came with me, and he was hanging back a little bit. Got in there, and they began to throw snowballs at me, and I said, Kenny, help! And all of a sudden, here came Kenny. And those college students were met with 95-mile-an-hour snowballs with deadly accuracy. True story. They went back to their apartments. They never bothered me again. And you know, we all have struggles and difficulties that we can't handle ourselves, but we have a big, big God who's able. And all you got to do is call out and say, God, help!
Yeah.
I need your power in my life, and God will come and
That's
help
right.
you.
Yeah.
Here's number 4. So we said, first of all, it's through giving him glory. We said that it's also through his power. We said that we have to believe he can do it. Here's number 4. If God's going to do more through us, then he must first let him do more within us.
Yeah, that's right.
Look right back at the verse. Here's the next part of the verse. All glory to God who is able through his mighty power at work within us. If God is going to do more through us, then we must first let him do more within us. Within us. God prepares you for more before he does more in your life. And it simply comes by surrendering to God's plans, God's will. God, I want you to do more. You know, when you're praising the Lord, you raise your hands up. When police pull somebody over, what do they tell you to do? You put your hands up. That's a sign of surrender. It's a sign of surrender. And God said, man, surrender to me. Let me come in and change your life. And I can do great things through you. So you got to surrender. You have a lot of sacrifice too. It takes sacrifice to see God do more. You probably heard the story of William Borden Milk. So William, years ago, he was the person that was going to step in next and be the president of Borden Milk. This is back in the 1800s. And early 1900s. And he was ready for that responsibility, but then he got called by God to be a missionary. He had been gone on a high school trip, and they went all around the world. And as that happened, man, he began to think less and less about the money that he'd get from the milk and more and more of what God could do through him. And so he said no to his inheritance. He said no to being the next president of Borden Milk. And he decided he was going to go and serve the Lord. He wrote down in his Bible, he wrote down this word. He went to seminary in New Jersey, and as he was finishing up his studies, he got ready to go to China, and he wrote in his Bible, no reserves. No reserves. As he got on the boat to go to China, he stopped first in Egypt to study Arabic. And while he was there, he contracted spinal meningitis. And they found his Bible, and he wrote in his Bible, no retreat. No retreat. They found finally in his Bible, he had written the third thing, and that was this. Couldn't bring those up to you. No regrets. So he never made it to the mission field, but he wrote those 3 things as he surrendered himself to God. So I want to ask you, are you willing to surrender to God? Are you willing to obey him so that you can see him do more in your life? 2 more things. Here's the next one is this. Go back to the verse. Now, glory to God. It's got to be his glory.
That's right.
Who's able? It's got to depend on his ability. Believe he can do it. Through his mighty power, believe his power can work through you. It's happening within us. Here's the next thing. To accomplish infinitely more than we might ask. And ask or think.
Yeah.
The 5th thing is this. You got to pray for more. You got to pray for more. There was a time in the Bible that Jesus sent the disciples out, and they went, and they came back, and they were discouraged because they had met this demon that wouldn't leave. I don't know if it was like some kind of super demon or what, but it would not leave. I don't know if they thought they were going to go in there like the Ghostbusters or something. I don't know what they thought, but the demon didn't leave. And they came back and said, Jesus, what happened? We came against this demon, but it wouldn't leave. We weren't able to see him healed. And Jesus said this kind doesn't come except by prayer and fasting.
That's right.
We don't see God do more many times because we don't ask him to do more. Nothing of eternal value is accomplished without prayer.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing. Nothing is accomplished. We ought to pray big, bold prayers. I was the last church I was at was in South Florida, and we were having our Christmas services, and there was a family in the church that I knew the father had been out of work, and he tried, couldn't find another job. And I saw them out in the parking lot as they were coming into the service, and I said, "Hey man, how's it going? Any more prospects on your job?" And he's like, "Man, I'm trying everything I'm going to do, but just nothing's landing. I don't know. Christmas is here. I don't know what I'm going to do for my kids for their gifts." And I said, "Well, what do they want?" Well, his daughter was there. She said, I want a bicycle. I said, "Okay, cool. You want a bicycle?" She said, "I like pink bicycles. I'm a girl, I like pink bicycles." So I made a note in my head, pink bicycles. And in my mind, I was thinking, I know what I'm going to do. Tuesday, or this week, I'm going to go to Walmart or Target, and I'm going to get a bicycle. Pink bicycle, bring it back and have it ready for it. Well, they went into the service, and I was in the kids' area during the service, just walking around, making sure everything was okay. I decided to go to the mailroom. Our church there had a mailroom where they put mail and stuff that dropped off and whatnot. So normally I wouldn't go down there during the service, but I thought, I've got a second, I'm going to go check the mailroom. So I go in the mailroom, and I'm thinking in my mind, that Tuesday I got to go get my bike that's pink. I opened the door to the mailroom, and you won't believe what was sitting there. A pink bicycle for a girl. And I went to the mailroom lady and I said, what's this doing in here? And they said that somebody dropped it by this week and said, somebody may need that. So if you find someone that needs a pink bicycle, give it to them. You know how joyous it was after the service? To be able to be waiting out there with that little girl and her father saying, God answers prayer.
Yeah.
Look what God did. I know it may seem like a small thing to you, but to a little girl, that's a big thing. Yeah. And God answered prayer. He's able. If you'll let him. You'll believe that he can do it if you pray and ask him. Now, this is a true story. You're not going to believe it's true, but it is true. It happened. I have a friend that's a missionary leader. He goes to churches and encourages people to get into missions. And he said, Dale, you won't believe what happened one time in Chicago. I was given a mission conference at a church. And after the first night, this little lady came up to me. She had her son with her. And they came up and she said, you know what? God spoke to me during your presentation. I think I'm supposed to give $200 toward the missions project. She said, I'm struggling because winter's coming. You know how cold it is in Chicago. And I got to have that $200. We got a leak in the roof. And I've got to get that fixed. And they told me it's going to cost $200 to fix it. And I'm really struggling here about obeying God and giving that $200. So I have nothing left. And he felt kind of awkward. Saying, I hate to ask her. He said, it's up to you. Well, she gave the $200. And she left. Night number 2 of the missions conference, the next night. After the service was done, this lady came back up to my friend and she was glowing. I mean, she was glowing and smiling. She said, you know what happened yesterday? Last night after I gave that offering, I went back in this afternoon. Before we were getting ready for the service, I was in my little house there. My son came home from school, got off the bus and gave him the door. I always asked him, what'd you learn at school today? So she said, what'd you learn at school today? And he said, I learned that Pikes Peak is named after Zerubbabel Pike. That's what they taught us in history. We learned that. Zerubbabel Pike is the founder named after Pikes Peak. She said, that's pretty awesome. Well, about 30 minutes later, this happened. You don't believe it happened. 30 minutes later, the phone rang. She picked it up. And it was this guy with a real excited voice. I'm from so-and-so radio here in the Chicagoland area. We're doing a giveaway thing, a contest live on the radio. You're live on the air. We just randomly picked your number out of the phone book. We got a question. You can answer this question. We got something for you. And she said, Pastor, you are not going to believe what he asked me. He said, here's the question for the money. Who is Pikes Peak named after? And she said, well, I know that because my son just came in from school and told me it's Zerubbabel Pike. And he said, congratulations, you win $200. Now think about that. It happened because a little lady prayed and asked God for more. Number 6, just to finish up there. You got to have a vision. Yeah. You got to have a vision for it. Last word in the verse says this. Accomplish even more than we might ask or think. Think. What are you even thinking about? You think about going on a mission trip, but you just don't know if you can really, you're a little bit afraid of that. Is God calling you to be a pastor or be in ministry? And you're like, I want to, but I don't know. Or maybe he's tapping on some of you guys to start new businesses so that you can finance God's work here on the earth. You've been thinking about it, but you've kind of been nervous about stepping out and doing that. We got to have a vision for more. You have to look beyond what is and see what it could be. I've never heard a story about Rocky Balboa. I know everybody's heard of his movies and whatnot. Rocky is what it's called. Did you know his story? He was brought up in foster homes. And first of all, when he was born, he had something wrong with his mouth, and they accidentally cut the wrong nerve. So if you see him when he talks like that, it's not because he's trying, it's because he has a nerve that was severed. Well, he had it rough. He grew up in foster homes here and there, all over the place. He got out on his own, couldn't hardly make it, couldn't keep a job. Finally, he got so desperate for money, he had his favorite dog. He got so desperate for money just to keep the light bill on that he sold his dog to one of his neighbors for $35. So he was down, 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 down. So he had this vision. He had this vision to make a movie about a boxer. And he sat down and he wrote out a script for a guy that would be a boxer. And he began to take that script to different movie studios or mail it to them and say, here's a great idea for a movie. He got turned down over 1,000 times. He heard the word no 1,000 times, but he would not give up. He had a vision he wanted to see happen. He wanted to see what happened. He wouldn't give up. Finally, a movie company called and said, okay, we'll give you $300,000 for the script, but you can't be in the movie because you can't act. He said, no, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be Rocky. If you want to do the movie, I'm going to be Rocky in it, so no. Finally, a company said, okay, we'll try it. You can make the movie and we'll let you be Rocky. Well, the movie was successful. Obviously, you know that. There's been, $1 billion if you think about all the different Rocky movies. But he got this windfall of money from that first payment. And you know what he did with that windfall? He went over and he went to his neighbor and said, I want to buy my dog back. The guy said, that'll be $15,000. He paid it. He loved his dog that much. And so just think about all the stuff that he's been through. But he wouldn't give up. Have you given up?
Yeah.
God said, I've got more for you, but you're going to give up.
Yeah.
If he could give himself to something secular like that, how much more should we give ourselves
Yeah. Sure.
to God? Don't let your vision give up.
Yeah.
I remember growing up in church. We'll just say that that's got words on it. But growing up in a small country church, we have what we call the attendance board. Anybody remember attendance board? Yeah. It'd be on the wall like that. It would say, attendance this week, attendance last week, offering getting and so forth. I used to always look at that when I was a kid. Oh, look, the numbers are up. We're doing better. Or look, oh man, the numbers are down a little bit. We're not doing as good. Everybody seems to be focused on that. But here's what I want to present to you today. The number of people that you have here coming to church is not the number that should keep you up at night.
That's right.
It's the number of people around you that don't know Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amen.
The issue is not if you have 50 people or 500 people or 5,000 people. That's not the issue. The issue is there's people all around us at our jobs and our neighborhoods that don't know Jesus.
Yeah, that's right.
And we have to have a vision to see them come to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
See them come to Christ. As we wrap up here, my first ministry assignment I got out of college was to go to California. We went to Southern California, and we were there. We started a church with a friend of mine. He was older than me, so he was the pastor. I was like the associate pastor. So we were out there. We were about 60 miles outside of LA. It was a really fast-growing city at the time. And the only place we could find to meet was a bingo parlor. Seriously, we searched the whole town. The only place we could find to meet was a bingo parlor. And we would come in, because they had bingo on Saturday nights, we would come in and clear all the smoke out. And there was a permanent Budweiser sign behind the pulpit. So we would put our church sign up over that, that Budweiser sign. And I don't know who designed this building, but the bathroom was up front. And so in the middle of the service, if you had to go to the bathroom, you had to really go, because you had to get up and walk in front of everybody and go into the bathroom. And here's the looking back, it was comical at the time. It wasn't comical. It was close enough where you could hear the flush. So you would have people that were desperate to go to the bathroom. They would come out and they would be so embarrassed. A lot of times they would crouch down and they try to get back to their seat. But God began to bless our church, began to grow. We got our own building, and I'll never forget one day, I was sitting in my office and I had a window I could see the parking lot. This big old Cadillac came in and parked. And I could tell it was a little bitty lady sitting driving. You could barely see her head over the steering wheel. Barely see it. We got used to that in Florida. It was always fun. People going 30 on the freeway. All those snowbirds coming down. Made it interesting. But anyways, all I could see was her hair. It was a wig. You got a wig, I'm sure it's beautiful, but you ever seen something that's a wig right there? It was a wig. Well, she got out of her car. Little old lady, had it in her 80s. She got out of her car, she went to this corner of the building and started staring at the back of the parking lot. And so I got out of my seat, went up there and said, hey, I'm one of the pastors here. Can I help you? She said, is that a bus? Is that a bus? I said, yes, ma'am, that's a bus. She said, do you pick kids up and bring them to church on that bus? I said, yes, ma'am. Give me a water break. She said, yes, I do pick people. We do pick. I said, we do pick people up on that bus. She said, I used to go to a church. It's about 3 or 4 blocks from here. We used to do that. When I was back in my 30s and 40s, we used to do that, and I loved it. We'd go out and get those kids and tell them about Jesus, and I loved it. But they quit doing it. So I don't go on the bus anymore. I said, well, yes, ma'am, we still have our bus. We do. So she left. About 2 weeks later on Sunday morning, I looked, and on the Sunday morning service, the parking lot, that big Cadillac pulled in, and it was Miss Betty again. She got out, she's coming to church, she started coming, and she joined the church. And one Sunday afternoon, I was out there shaking hands with people leaving the building, and she came out, she said, I want to talk to you a second. I said, okay. She pulled me over to the side, she said, you know, Pastor Bill, man, I've been thinking, been dreaming. Been having a fresh vision I believe God's given me. I want to get back and work on that bus. And I was like, now listen, Betty, you know how hot it gets here in the summer. It's like 100 degrees. And we don't have any air conditioning on those buses. I'm not going to get you on those buses, you'll die. I don't know if you get up the steps or not. She looked at me. She said, Pastor Dale, I'm going to do it. You're not going to stop me. She was a good kind of stubborn like that. So I said, okay, you were trying to. You know what, man, she started riding that bus. I'd see her on Sunday morning, then help her up those stairs. She'd get in that seat. I'd see the bus come back in, and she would be surrounded by little girls. And she was loving on and praying for and pouring God's word into it. She began to make a huge impact in the lives of so many of those kids.
Yeah.
After she was doing that about a year, one day, the Cadillac pulled back in the parking lot on a weekday. And went out there, hey, Betty, how's it going? And she said, you know, I've been thinking. There's another part of town over here where there's a whole bunch of kids, and we don't pick up any kids over there. Man, we gave you a lot of those kids if we just had another bus.
Yeah.
I said, you're right, man, we're a new church. Man, we don't have enough extra money for another bus. She said, I've been thinking about that. Come here, I'll show you something. She said, come with me. So I went around with her to the back of that big Cadillac. She popped the trunk, and inside was the dead body of a mafia guy. Just kidding. Her husband was in the mafia. Just kidding. Inside that trunk was the most incredible, awesome dog collection I've ever seen in my life. All still in the box.
Wow.
Dozens of them in there.
Wow.
She said, this is my collection. I've been saving these for decades. They're worth a bunch of money.
Wow.
And I want to sell those and us buy the bus with the money. I said, are you sure? He said, my husband told me I could do it, but he don't tell me what to do. And she did it. In her 80s, she sold her dolls.
Wow. And
we got her the bus. And she kept loving those kids and serving Jesus. You know what she taught me? She taught me that no matter what your age, God's always got more for
That's
you to
right,
do.
yes.
Amen.
God's got always got more for you to do if you're to surrender yourselves to Him. God loves to fill ordinary people with His power and do extraordinary things for you. Let me show you the last verse here. I read this one day, and it may have just jumped out at me. Go on at the end there, go one more. There you go. I read this verse one day in the book of Acts, and man, it spoke to me. It says this, that God did extraordinary miracles through Paul. I believe you can write your name in there.
Yeah.
God wants to do extraordinary miracles through your pastor. God wants to do extraordinary miracles through you.
Yeah.
If you'll just open up your heart, you'll believe, you'll give Him the glory, you'll believe He's able, you'll trust in His power, you will be blown away
Yes, sir.
by what He can do.
That's right.
The best is yet to come if you'll allow Him to do that. Let's bow our heads and close our eyes if we could. Ben asked me just to share as our heads bowed. We've been talking about faith stories. My great-grandfather was a criminal. I've never been in church. Didn't know anything about God. He was sent to prison for murdering someone and lived out his life there. My grandfather stepped right into his shoes and began to have his nose broke 5 times, fighting in bars. Our family knew nothing about God. Until one day, a man in our neighborhood saw how messed up our family was and came and invited us to church. My grandfather shushed him away, but he wouldn't give up. Finally, one Saturday, my grandmother said, okay, we'll go. And for the first time in our family's life, my grandmother and dad walked into the church and heard that there's a better life, that you don't have to live like that. Long story short, my grandmother came to Christ. My dad came to Christ. My dad was called to preach. His first or second service, my grandfather came to hear his son preach. Everybody thought the building was going to cave in. He's known all over town for fighting and drunk all the time. But during the invitation, he came and gave his life to Christ. Stayed faithful to God for 33 years before he died. And I had the privilege of being born into a family that knew the gospel and shared it with me. So I don't, no matter what your background is,
That's right.
God's able to do great things through you. I want to just ask you a question. Put your head down. Just say, who would say here today, you'd say, you know, I thought God was done with me. I haven't been serving Jesus really like I should because I just stopped. Or don't know if he can still use me. Is that you today? Would you raise your hand? That's you. God bless you. God bless you. I want you to know that he's not done with you. He's got great things to do through you. How many of you would say, I want to see God do more in our church? Because we've got a great church here, but we're still surrounded by lots of people that don't know Jesus. And I want to see God do more in our church. Would you raise your hand if that's you? I want to see God do more in my life and in the life of my church. Praise the Lord. Pastor Ben's going to come and conclude our service if you guys go.